This is incredible. Thank you for making the trek. You came here en route to Long Island.
That's right.
You just saw Ben Askren.
Saw Ben,
What do you think of Ben?
I love Ben.
Yeah? You're a fan?
The way he wrestled in college, he was an amazing college competitor, and I love how he transitioned all that to MMA. He does a great job.
And so this is very exciting. This is a living legend here in studio, my friends. This is a Hall of Famer, former champion, 2-division champion, the one and only. I don't even need to give you an introduction, but Randy, the Natural Couture. We even had our audio guy before the show say, that's the guy from the Expendables.
Yeah.
Knew nothing about your MMA career.
Yeah.
You're just the Expendables guy now.
Weird how that transition just kind of
Yes.
happened.
Do you get that now? Like people don't.
More of that than
Really?
Than fighting.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, good for me.
Sure, because that means you're not being
spending my
typecast.
time now.
Right.
Is chasing acting jobs. So
Okay, so you're here for PFL. PFL debuts this Thursday on ESPN.
that's right.
First event on Long Island, season 2. Kayla Harrison
Yes.
has just been bumped to essentially the main event, even though I know there's no like technical.
Yeah, every fight counts. Every
Right.
guy's, whether you're lower in the card or the last fight of the night, every single one counts. They're trying to score points and make it to that postseason.
And you are a color commentator, so you're going to be on the broadcast. And I just found out about this. The play-by-play man is Sean O'Connell.
Yeah, Sean, was getting his feet wet with that last year and,
Right.
and wearing 2 hats. Literally taking the suit off,
Yes.
getting up in the cage,
That's
which
insane.
I thought was crazy. But now he's retired from fighting and going to be one of my guys there at the desk helping me.
Is it just you two in the booth?
Eve Edwards is back. Caroline
Right.
Pierce
Yes.
is back.
Okay.
I think it's going to be the 4 of us.
And do you like do you like what they're doing? Do you like the momentum coming off
I
of
do.
season
I think
1?
like everybody else, when I first saw this format, I had questions. I was like, oh my gosh, you're turning these guys around every 6 weeks.
Right.
You're going to fight the quarterfinals and the semifinals in one night. That's something we used to do that
Right.
we haven't really done in a long time. And I tell you, I was pleasantly surprised with the first season, how the fighters dealt with that adversity, stepped up. It was very exciting. It's 70% finish rate with a lot of those fighters, which is amazing. So I'm excited for season 2.
Do you get the sense that the fighters, because of the money involved, because of what's at stake, that they're actually like going for it? Like they recognize you can't,
What I like about it is an absolute meritocracy.
Okay.
You can talk smack if that's who you are, but that's not going to get you anywhere. You still got to go out and score points and make it to that postseason, to that progressive tournament, to get to the money, to get to the big prize. So
Right.
I like that.
What I like about PFL right now is that in MMA, like back in the Strikeforce days, right? Like Coker had the females. That was his thing that differentiated him from the UFC. Now everyone has women's MMA. So this is their thing. The tournament and all that is their way to say we're not the UFC, right? Because at this point, if you're just doing random fights, you're essentially, I think in some fans' eyes, viewed as like UFC light. And you don't want to be viewed as such, right?
I think they wanted to try a different format that was a lot more in line with the traditional league.
Right.
Same as the NFL. We got the Stanley Cup playoffs going on right now.
Right.
All those teams were vying for that opportunity to that championship match. This is the same thing. There's a regular season. How you finish those fights in the regular season is going to score points and move you to the postseason matches and the opportunity to win the championship for this year.
I want the PFL to succeed. I think there should be 10 organizations out there. I know the fans don't want that, but I think the more organizations, the better it is for the fighters, right?
I agree. I agree.
More
100%.
competition, you get paid more. There's true free agency as opposed to just like 2-3 places. My concern is, as much as I love the $1 million for the fighters, I'm afraid that it's too much money at this juncture for such a young company, right? That's a lot of money to pay out.
Well, I think a lot of people believe in the format and this approach to the sport that nobody's tried yet. Obviously you got guys like Kevin Hart and Tony Robbins getting on board and putting
Jimmy
some of their
Ivey and
money.
I just
there's
read,
a whole bunch of folks that believe in the format. I think if the first season is an indication, I think we're headed in the right direction. Being on ESPN this year is certainly a big step up and will get these fighters and our brand a lot more exposure.
How old are you right now, Randy?
55.
Jeez Louise, you look tremendous.
Well, thanks.
How do you feel?
I feel good.
Yeah?
I feel good, holding up well.
You don't feel like the body has...
Got some discs in the neck that are a little tired, but other than that, I've held up very, very well.
Have you, it's funny because last week was the anniversary of your last fight.
Oh, that's
UFC
right.
129.
Yeah, that's right.
April 30th, 2011,
Yeah,
8 years
in
ago.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Yep.
Between like
Got
today.
all new front teeth after that one.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I remember that shot of the tooth
kick,
flying.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You had to replace them all?
4 of them.
Why?
Kicked them out. They were all
All
gone.
4 came out?
Yeah.
I thought just 1.
No, there was 4.
Oh my gosh. 4 in the front?
Yep.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
That never happened?
I had all my own teeth until that fight.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were wearing a mouthpiece?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good shot. Kicked
Had
me
you ever
right in
been
the
hit
mouth.
that hard before?
I've been hit harder than that. I mean, he didn't knock me out.
Sure.
Certainly flashed me, but really only been knocked out one time, and that was the second Chuck fight.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like
where
out cold.
Yeah, where you lose that piece of time. And
Okay. Do you recall anything from that now, or
no,
you never get it?
I think I don't think I have any. I didn't have that style, that kind of let's trade blows and see who
Sure.
goes down first type of style. So, tried to minimize the damage and that was really the only time I got knocked. I got flashed a couple other times, but that was really the only time I got knocked out.
So the reason I brought it up is between this time and 2011, did you ever get the itch to come back? Like now, I mean, 55, obviously it's not happening, but
No, yeah, obviously the phone started ringing when Fedor came back out and threw his hat back in the ring, because that was the fight a lot of people wanted to see when we were both at our prime and ranked 1 and 2 in the world, and
Right.
and obviously a fight I chased for a significant amount of time too. But it just didn't make sense to me. I'm having so much fun acting and doing all that. The gym and the clothing line and all the other stuff is doing really well. And I have my health.
Right.
Went out on my own terms. I think that's a rare thing in the sports world today, to not have a doctor or promoter saying, man, you really shouldn't do this anymore. So
right.
I felt comfortable with and felt like it was the right decision for me, and I've stuck with it.
Like when you saw Chuck and Tito fight in November, what's going through your mind?
I hoped it would have been a knockdown, drag-out fight,
Okay.
and that would have been really, really exciting. Obviously, it didn't really go that way. And, good for Tito. He got a chance to get one back.
Right.
He's been active and competing and doing well. Chuck hadn't really done anything in literally 8 years, which is not generally a very good idea to try and come back. So,
Right.
love both those guys. They're both great guys. See them here and there. See Chuck at the gym in LA. Done some appearances with Tito here and there, and so my hope was that it would just would have been a barn burner, and didn't go that way.
Chuck should stop fighting though, right?
I mean, I think everybody feels that way,
Right.
And I think maybe he feels that way. But again, it's such a personal thing.
Right.
If in his heart he feels like he has more to do or more to accomplish, then who can hold that against him? I think he's got to let it run its course. But I think most people watching and certainly seeing that fight felt like it wasn't the same Chuck that we're used to seeing.
It always felt to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, your transition was pretty smooth. It feels like for fighters, I mean, we've seen this time and again in the fight game, it's very hard to say goodbye, right?
Transition's tough.
Yeah.
And this is.
Did you ever have tough moments?
Our identity is wrapped up in that soul endeavor, and that's a difficult thing to just let go of and walk away from. We're not normal humans.
Right.
So to think you're just going to throw us back into the civilian world and it's going to be honky-dory doesn't work that way. I've been fortunate in the transitions that I've had, both leaving the military, leaving wrestling. I had other things to go to, leaving MMA. I had acting. I had all these other things that I'd built from that made that transition easier and smoother for me. I had a new purpose. I had something else to focus on, and that's what a lot of our guys, whether they're pro athletes or soldiers, when they transition is very difficult.
Did you ever have any moments where you're like, man, like, because I've heard it sort of compared to like drugs, right? Like you need that drug, like the drug, like of the fans and the attention and the buildup,
There's
the buzz.
adrenaline.
Yeah.
Walking out of that tunnel.
Did you ever feel like you were missing it?
No,
Were you
I
ready?
felt pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I think it was the right time for me, and it took me a while to come to that conclusion. It wasn't
After
an
the
easy
Machida
thing.
fight?
No, I had decided. It started entering my mind for the James Toney fight.
Okay, really?
Yeah, I had every injury I'd ever had in my wrestling and fighting career flare up during that camp for no particular reason. And it was the first time I ever thought, man, maybe my body's telling me I need to start thinking about the future and doing something else. And then, obviously that fight was an important fight, but not a terribly tactical fight.
Right.
And I felt like Lyoto was definitely a very tactical fight and one that I, win or lose, I could go out on.
Okay. But you knew that night.
I knew beforehand. I just didn't tell anybody.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we did the book, The Last Round with Sarah Levin.
Yeah.
She followed me through that whole camp. There was only 2 or 3 people that knew I'd made the decision to retire. I knew if I told everybody, made it public, it would have taken on a life of its own.
You didn't want that.
And I wanted to focus on the fight.
Okay. Do you have regrets that your last fight was a loss?
No, I mean, you can't think of things that way.
Right.
Some of those losses that I suffered in my career were the most important thing that could have happened to me at that time. I got all these bright, shiny new teeth for acting now, so
Perfect.
Things turned out the way they're supposed to.
Do you foresee? I know you've gone to Washington and you've tried to fight for fighter rights and things of that nature. Do you foresee in your lifetime any scenario in which for retired fighters, especially of your stature, of Chuck's stature, of Tito's stature, where there's any sort of system in place that helps with the transition, that like the NFLPA, like the NBAPA?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm part of the MMA FA, the Fighters Association, and we're lobbying hard to get the Ali Act amended to cover us as combative sports athletes across the board, not just boxers, and create some transparency in the industry with the amount of money that promoters are making, and give us a fair shake in negotiating our share of that, which doesn't happen right now.
Are there legs to it right now? Because it feels like...
I think through that same process, I mean, if you look at SAG, as a member of SAG, that's the model I think that fits fighting the best. There's a bunch of studios out there all trying to make films. There's this pool of actors that they're trying to pull from. They have health insurance. They have retirement plans. They have created minimum standards for treatment and pay through SAG. I think that's something that we should aspire to as fighters.
Do you feel like we're moving in that direction?
I feel like we're trying to educate the fighters, and that's been the biggest challenge, getting the fighters to see the merit in getting on board with this and coming together. Without us, there's no show.
Right.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
So if we come together, unite, and use that as leverage, I think we can get a better deal, and that's the point.
Are you surprised that it's taken the fighters so long to see this? Because sometimes, no?
We are very egocentric. That's what makes us good at what we do.
Right.
It's never going to happen to me, and know, we don't think forward enough, I think, and so that's kind of what we're up against. So
you're trying to essentially say, like, look at, like, I have gone through the entire gauntlet, right? It will happen to you. Like the ride ends at some point, no matter how good you are.
Absolutely. Does not last forever. You have to recognize you have a short window of opportunity to make this kind of money, to be a professional like this, and eventually, realistically, you have to call it quits at some point.
Sometimes it feels like the media cares about this more than the fighters, because I feel like we talk about it and then you ask the fighters about it and they say essentially what you're saying, like, I fought tooth and nail to get to this point. I can't
afford to get blacklisted. I can't afford to be, this is the battle, and getting enough guys to step up and be willing to put it on the line. Yeah, it's one thing for me. I'm already retired. My time is over.
Right.
I'm happy to lend my name to this fight, and it is a fight. But at the end of the day, we need the guys that are current, that are right now, that are in it to step up and be part of this.
And you feel like it's still alive, right?
Still alive, still happening.
Okay.
Obviously, there's been some jockeying, political jockeying, things going on, being lobbied against, and significant monies being thrown, against getting things amended and set up, which, I get it'll change the sport, but I think in a lot of ways, certainly from a fighter's perspective, it will make it better.
So you occupy your time. You do PFL 10 shows, right? You'll be at all 10?
I will be at all 10.
Calling them ESPN, PFL, debuts this Thursday. Still acting.
Still acting. Just finished a film in New Mexico.
Really? Called
The Manson Brothers Midnight Zombie Massacre.
Okay.
It was a blast. Had a lot of fun doing it. Max Martini directed.
Okay.
He's, I met him years ago doing The Unit.
Okay.
And we've been friends for a long time. And his second directorial debut, so getting a chance to work with him was a lot of fun, and a great cast of guys.
You enjoy the process of making films?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an interesting process and not something I ever saw myself doing. I think I was in Tiny Tim in the 6th grade in the Christmas Carol. I played Tiny Tim.
Really? Wow. You got the lead role.
But that was it.
Wow.
Spent my whole life as an athlete kind of boxing up my emotions and putting them to the side and going out and doing what I trained to do.
Right.
So now in this process, they want you to find a way to emote real things and be genuine in these made up scenarios. Try and find a way to tell the truth, which is the real key and the trick.
Who first introduced you to acting?
My first movie experience was Cradle to the Grave in 1998.
Wow.
And the call came through the UFC. They were looking for some authentic cage fighters for the cage fighting scene in that movie with DMX and Jet Li.
Okay.
So me and Chuck and Tito all got a chance to be in that movie. I had one line in the movie, and Chuck and Tito actually fought each other in the movie, which was interesting because that was what everybody was trying to make happen back then.
Right.
Which never did happen, at least for a while.
Right.
So that was my first experience, first chance to see the process, and was immediately intrigued and enamored with the whole thing.
But the next one after that, was there a big gap?
No, I kind of did it was an MMA movie called No Rules. Had Frank Shamrock, Lynn Henderson, David Dunn, and Jerry Anderson, Pam's brother.
Okay.
Jerry wrote this, and David Dunn was the lead. It was a low budget, but it was a great experience. I got to play the lead bad guy in a movie, and it was, for me at that time, it was important. I needed more experience, more chance to develop new tools, new skills.
I didn't know. I'm just going to move this. I didn't know that Pamela Anderson had a brother in movies.
That was, I don't know if he ever did any acting.
Oh, okay.
But obviously,
I didn't even know there was one.
She did a cameo in the film because it was him. He wrote it, and it was his first and maybe his only directing.
Really?
Yeah. So
how many have you done at this point?
Around 35 feature films, I think. Yeah, somewhere around there.
What's your favorite so far?
Well, I mean, it's tough to beat The Expendables. Yeah. I had a great time doing Scorpion King 2.
Right.
Obviously, that was a huge property for The Rock, for Dwayne Johnson, and to get to do the prequel to that was a lot of fun for me and a good learning experience for me as well. Will
there be a fourth Expendables?
They're saying this summer.
Really?
So still waiting to see a script and find out
part of
what's going on. Yeah, Toll Road's still alive. So
wow.
Yeah, that's always the first thing you do is go through the script.
Are you alive?
Yeah.
So okay, so they're saying they're going to start shooting this summer?
Start shooting this summer, yeah.
Wouldn't you know by now? I mean, it's getting kind of close, no?
This has been going on back and forth for the last couple of years. And Sly's just been so busy with Escape Plan, Creed 2, and now a new Rambo. I think he's finally clear to come around, and it sounds like they've got a script. I'm excited to read it and see what we're doing and who's coming back.
Yeah.
What's going on.
And where do you live these days?
Vegas.
Still Vegas.
Still Vegas.
Not LA.
No, still. I have a place in LA, and obviously part of the crew at Unbreakable with Glazer and the guys there. And
how often do you spend there? So Jay Glazer, the great NFL reporter, also owns a gym there with others as well, right?
I'm one of those others.
You're one of the others, okay. But it's like a VIP gym. Is that fair?
It is. It's
like I can't just walk in there as an
exclusive boutique performance training center.
Okay.
Very unique place and has a very interesting vibe to it. It's a cool place.
How would you describe that vibe?
It's a little bit like Cheers.
Okay.
Everybody walks through the door, their name gets shouted, and then it's like being part of a fight team.
Okay.
We're doing the same kind of strength conditioning and performance training that I did as a fighter, training to get ready for fights, and then we finish every workout with some form of MMA on the mats, doing some form of drilling, or that's our cardio. That's how we finish every workout.
And it's all famous people?
Well, there are a lot of famous people in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you're not a famous person, you could still go. You just have to
still go, sure.
Pay a lot of money.
It's exclusive. Let's just say it's that way.
But how's what's the process in terms of getting in?
Come in. Yeah, it's an open door.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Interesting. But if it's an open door, how is it exclusive?
Because the cost makes it exclusive.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I heard Jay say recently that Chris Pratt hits harder than you. Did you see that?
Jay is always poking fun at me.
Why?
Because that's how we roll.
Okay.
That's what we do.
All right.
Jay's great, and I've not met a more loyal guy than Jay Glazer. But Chris is amazing.
Is he?
And actually grew up in the same neck of the woods where I grew up in Washington, north of Seattle.
Okay.
And his wrestling coach in high school went to Oklahoma State, where I went to college.
Right.
He was the class before me. So
okay.
We never really crossed paths. His name's Brent Barnes, and he's a great guy too. But I crossed paths with Chris when Chris was in high school, and I was coaching at Oregon State. And Brett brought a bunch of his kids down to our Oregon State camp, and I guess I called Chris out and used him as a demonstration for technique. He remembered that. I didn't remember that until obviously now much later. It's Chris Pratt.
Yes,
so,
yeah.
A little bit different time. And so it was a really funny story. And now Chris trains at the gym and get to wrestle with him and work out with him on occasion. And
wow,
he's great.
that must be amazing
Physical
for him.
guy, physical guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he that strong? I mean, obviously
No, his wrestling is still there. He's still
Really?
great arm drag. He moves well, really enjoys it. That's the thing about wrestling. It's one of those sports, you know, Ben Askren just talked about that. It
Right.
builds character. And once you get that mindset, you look at the world that way the rest of your life.
So he just goes there to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of, and who else did I see that was there? Does Sly go there?
Wiz Khalifa's in there. Sly comes in there
Wiz
once in a
Khalifa's
while.
like
Snoop
transformed
Dogg
his
comes in there.
body.
Yeah, Wiz, they put on 25 pounds and looks great. Demi Lovato trains in there with
Right.
a lot of
Man, what
a lot
a crew.
of folks in there. Yeah.
What a crew. That's amazing. So you spend your time doing movies, doing PFL, doing Unbreakable. Anything else you got? Or is that the life of
Extreme
Randy
Couture
Couture?
is where it all started.
Right.
So
Are you still
I'm
going
in
there?
Vegas? I'm at Extreme Couture. You know, Ryan has picked up the mantle there and is kind of running with that. Him and Eric Nixick do a great job of running the gym. So if I'm in Vegas, I'm at Extreme Couture. If I'm in LA, I'm at Unbreakable. But I'm in neither of those places very often,
Right.
to be honest, on the road a lot.
It feels, and correct me if you feel otherwise, it feels like for a moment Extreme Couture was kind of down, and it has experienced a revitalization.
Yeah, well, I think there's an ebb and flow to any gym,
Right.
You know, especially a fight gym. And when I retired, a whole bunch of guys went other places to find workout partners. I wasn't in there grinding out camps, and especially some of the bigger guys at that time that had gravitated there because I was in there training, and so that we kind of, you know, there was a dip. Some guys went other places to get, you know, the training they needed. Dennis Davis came in and from one of my original guys from Team Quest, and was trying to get him put over and give him the credibility that he needed to continue to coach. Robert Follis came in and obviously helped with that because Robert was his mentor.
Okay.
And Dennis, you know, literally gave up some salary to find a way to get Robert in there.
Wow.
And Robert was a huge piece of kind of the resurgence, which he attracted Misha Tate and then so many other big stars that were still competing actively. And obviously we're all devastated with what happened with Robert, and you know, Dennis is and all the other guys are still there and still doing what they do so well. So
Do you feel like, obviously that was, I remember speaking to you just a couple of days later, that was a horrible tragedy. Do you feel like the gym has been able to get back on its feet, or are you still missing his presence?
I think the gym's, obviously we're always going to miss Robert,
Yeah.
but the gym is still doing very, very well. Eric and Ryan, like I said, have stepped up. Dennis is still in there doing all the things that Robert taught him to do, basically. Okay. And so the gym is doing very, very well.
Is that the kind of, like, do you think about Robert a lot and signs and what could I have done?
Well, you know, it's tough because knowing Robert as well as I do, you know, I understand how he came to that decision, all the factors that led him there. And you'd like to think that maybe there was something he could have said or done, but honestly, I don't think there was.
Really?
I think that he planned this very meticulously. That I don't, you know.
It wasn't a spur of the moment thing.
No, I don't think so.
Really?
I think this had been coming. There was.
Why?
I think survivor's guilt of his own when his brother committed suicide. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something he had trouble dealing with, and there was a lot more family dynamic there too. But that was, I think, the biggest thing and the thing that pushed him over the edge the most.
Some have talked to me about Jehovah's Witness and that role in his life. Do you feel like, do you subscribe to that?
That was a huge piece of the mechanics of what ultimately led him down that road, and what affected his brother the way it did, and ultimately him as well.
I was just at the gym 2 months ago because it was a one championship event there.
Yeah.
And I saw Ryan there, and it was nice to come back. It'd been a while since I'd been back there, but it was nice to see that it still seemed thriving. There were a lot of kids there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's packed. I mean, you go in there just about any night of the week, and it's packed. From the kids' classes to the pro practice, the whole thing.
And how many are there right now? Because I know you had one in Toronto.
The one in Toronto is still there, and that's a licensing agreement with the Toronto gym.
But the main one for you is?
The main one is Vegas. That's the only other one that's left. I think I had 10 at one time when the first year that we opened Xtreme Couture in Vegas. Wow. And then in 2008, when the economy turned, a bunch of them went away.
Okay. What was your fate like when you think back? Because I remember those times when you launched Xtreme Couture and things were going, like it seemed like the sport was really exploding. Not to say that it's not now, but for you and your involvement in the sport as a fighter, what's your favorite time, your favorite era, your favorite year? Is there a time where you think back and you're like, man, it was great. Like those were the glory days.
I feel fortunate in that I got to kind of compete through what most people see as the golden era of the sport.
Yep,
you know,
100%.
I came in on the kind of on the cusp of the transition where everybody started cross training, and I was kind of part of that whole thing. I think before that, you know, I came in UFC 13, and before that, everybody was out to prove that their martial arts style was the best martial arts style. And I think we quickly realized there was no one martial arts style that did or encompassed everything we needed.
Right.
So I was kind of part of that second crew of guys that recognized the need to cross train. And, you know, there were no MMA gyms then. We were going to 24-hour fitness or wherever to do our strength and conditioning, and hopefully getting on a wrestling mat or in a jiu-jitsu school somewhere to learn this other stuff, and going to the boxing gym for the striking or a kickboxing gym for the striking. There was no MMA training center. So, you know, Lion's Den, Team Quest, a bunch of those things grew out of that need, out of the niche of being an MMA one-stop shop.
But in terms of like for you personally, is there a period where you like really felt like, man, this was the time of my life that you think back to?
I mean, the whole thing was such an amazing ride.
Okay.
And to enter something on a whim in 1997, literally because it was interesting, and I saw guys I knew from the wrestling world that were doing it, and fortunate enough to get in back then, and then for it to just explode. In my third show, my fourth fight was for the championship of the world. I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah. Who convinced you to enter it?
I had a friend, Jim Townsend.
Okay.
Who was another wrestler. He lived in Malibu, running a production company in Malibu. And we met at the College Invitational and State Line. Usually it's in Vegas, but that particular year was at Buffalo Bills and State Line. And he's like, oh, man, did you see Coleman? Did you see Don Fry? You know, in that MMA thing, you should, or No Holds Barred back then.
Yeah.
You should do that. And I'm like, he's like, no, I know how to get the application. I'll send it in. And
wow.
So that's how it started.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you even watch it?
I had seen one tape.
Okay.
Of Fry competing, and obviously Fry and I were teammates at Oklahoma State. So I was immediately intrigued with what he was doing there and what was going on, and that's what started it.
Wow. What do you think your life would be like if that never happened? Because
I would probably still be coaching at the collegiate level somewhere if MMA had not come along. I was the assistant coach at Oregon State back then. The head coach did not like MMA or the fighting. He thought it was bad for wrestling, and really kind of forced me to make a decision, which I wasn't very happy about at that time, but quickly realized I'm glad he made me choose one or the other, because I would have tried to do both and it wouldn't have worked out.
So he basically said, you have to leave if you want to do this?
What are you going to be? You're going to be a wrestling coach, or are you going to be a fighter?
Wow. And you chose fighting.
And
was that a hard choice?
It was a scary choice.
Right.
I had a family to support,
right.
And that was a great job with great benefits, and nobody knew what was going to happen with MMA, so it was a bit of a risk to just jump out of a solid job and pursue MMA full time.
Do you think you would have been content if that was your life?
I think I would have.
Yeah.
But I also think that because I'd had the setbacks in both the NCAA finals wrestling and the Olympic trials, trying to make the Olympic team, that I was still hungry. I still wanted to compete. And that hunger drove me into MMA and trying my hand at this new sport.
I was talking about this with Ben before the show. So you were an alternate 3 times in the Olympics.
4, actually.
4. Yeah. Okay. But did you ever actually go to the Olympics?
I went and watched.
You watched, okay.
As a support, as part of the support staff and workout partner and scouting partner.
Yeah. What years?
88 was my first, so 88, 92, 96, and 2000.
2000. Wow.
I went to the 96 games were in Atlanta.
Yep.
I went to Spain, and I also went to Australia.
Wow. But you never
got to compete.
Do you consider yourself an Olympian because you were an alternate?
No. Wrestling is one of those pure sports. The alternates don't really, I mean, we're there to support the team.
Yeah.
But you don't get, it would, I don't think it's ever happened actually where an alternate got pushed in. Once those guys weigh in that first match,
right,
whatever happens to them after that, whether they win, lose, get hurt, There are no substitutes from that point on. So unless somebody got hurt the week before and couldn't weigh in that first time,
Yeah.
there's no way an alternate's going to get to compete. Now, I made the world team, which is basically the Olympics in a non-Olympic year, 4 times, and wrestled at the World Championships, and did well. I think the best I did was 97, right before the Belfort fight. Placed 9th at the Worlds in Greco. Tons of fond memories.
Yeah. I wonder, I mean, he's going to be on in like 15, 20 minutes. DC, when he couldn't compete because of his kidneys, I wonder if the alternate got to step in 2000 and
I
what would
wonder
that be?
because
8.
his issues prevented him from making weight. I think he actually tried to step on the scale, and I think at that point it's too late to put a substitute in there.
Okay.
So I think we just didn't get to compete at that weight.
Okay.
I think if he'd have been ill enough to say, look, I don't think I can do this, then we could have put a substitute in at that point.
Right.
But once he stepped on the scale, that's it.
Are you or Daniel Cormier the greatest Oklahoma State wrestler turned MMA fighter?
I don't know. I mean, Daniel's
What
amazing.
a debate, huh?
Yeah, Daniel's amazing. And
did you think he would turn into this?
Did I think it would turn into sport?
No, did you think he would turn into the fight? I think he is.
I absolutely believed he had.
Really?
100%. Had seen him in the gym, the way he implements his wrestling and his strengths into his fighting style. Those naturally heavy hands reminded me a little of Henderson. I don't think Danny ever knew he could punch like that till we started punching people.
Right.
And he started knocking people on their butts. And I don't know if Daniel was ever a big, I don't think he was in a lot of trouble or street fights. So I don't think he knew he had those heavy hands either till we started this.
Yeah, I actually truly believe that he's 1 or 2 in terms of like the greatest of all time. Like,
yeah, he's fantastic.
It's unbelievable.
Amazing technician, great. I love his personality. So
yes, he was supposed to fight Brock Lesnar, as you may have heard. That fell through.
Yeah,
you got to fight Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
you believe him that he's done?
I don't know.
He says this all the time.
He said it a few times.
Yeah.
And he's had some medical, the diverticulitis and some of those things that are genuinely tough things to deal with. But it's hard to say.
Yeah.
What's making a headline and what's genuine.
What's negotiations, right?
Yeah.
When he hits you, like with those paws.
The thing that's so deceptive about him is he's long.
Yeah.
I don't realize he looks so thick.
Yeah.
You think he's short. But
right.
He's very long.
He's got like an Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, it
arms,
just keeps
right?
coming.
That was the thing.
What was my undoing.
That's what you remember most about him.
Yeah.
Because I remember like he hit you
I
like
rolled that punch and
right?
he just kept coming and hit me right behind the ear and knocked me right on my butt. So.
And those aren't the punches that necessarily like hurt the most, right? It's just the button.
Yeah, it was just a flash.
Right, man. But in terms of like the behemoth of a man, you never fought anyone like him, right? Like just trying to.
No, not as
right?
big and as athletic as he is.
Yeah.
It's rare to find a guy that size that can move that well. Obviously Tim is a taller guy than Brock and as heavy, but Tim's not as athletic and doesn't move quite as well as Brock moves around.
Is the Tim fight the one that people want to talk to you about the most?
That's a lot of people's favorite.
Right.
Between the Tim fight and the Tito fight, I think those are the two that get brought up the most.
When you were slapping his butt?
Spanking him.
Yeah. Okay, spanking, my bad. That was a great moment. You screwed up all their plans. Remember?
Yeah.
You were. Did you?
I think I was in that situation a few times in my career.
Oh, really? You felt that? You felt like the cards were stacked.
I was the fly in the ointment.
Yeah.
I think they weren't keen, beating Belfort the first time.
Yeah.
He was literally their poster boy.
Right.
And they did not think that was going to go down that way. I'd heard stories that Meyerowitz was literally jumping up and down, screaming no.
Really?
In the production trailer.
Gosh.
As I was winning that fight. And then obviously, the Fertitas and Dana bought the company in 2001. And I think, I was the heavyweight champion at 39, almost 40 years old when that happened. And I don't think that they thought that was very marketable. So I always felt like they were always trying to find a way to get me beat or get me out of there. And it just didn't work out.
Do you remember the first time you met them, the Fertitas and Dana?
I had met Dana previous to them that previous year in December in Japan.
Oh, really?
I was over there cornering Matt Lindland in one of the last UFC Japans.
Okay.
And Dan Henderson in a Pride.
Right.
And Dana was still representing Chuck and Tito at that time, and he was interested in me, in picking me up and representing me.
Really?
And I had just talked to the guys from Battle Management, Jeremy Lappin and Peter Levin, and then met Dana while I was there in Japan. And then when I came back, he let me know. I let him know that I chose to go with Battle, and he said, well, I couldn't have represented you anyway. There's something coming down the pike. You're going to be excited about it,
Oh, wow.
I can't say anything, and then obviously found out a month later that the Fertittas bought the company and he was the new president.
Wow.
So it was, definitely
Do
changed the sport.
Do you feel like the fact that you didn't choose him as a manager?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that was something he took personal, and it wouldn't have worked out anyway, obviously, because he was in position to be the new president of the organization.
And what about when you met the Fertittas? Do you remember that?
It was after that, they started the big campaign to kind of rebrand the sport and take it to the next level. And that was the first time I had met Lorenzo. I don't think I met Frank until actually one of the fights.
Okay.
Where he, obviously came ringside to a lot of the fights.
Your son isn't competing anymore.
Ryan's fighting still with Bellator.
He is.
Yeah.
When's the last time he fought?
November.
Okay.
In Israel.
That's right. Against Chaim Ghazali.
Yeah,
Will he fight again?
He has more fights on his contract. It's really up to him.
Okay.
He's 36. He's been fighting 10 years. I feel like he's looking at the end of it.
Yeah.
So it's really, again, one of those personal things. It's up to him and his lovely wife. I know they're hankering to start a family and all of that too. So I think all those are factors that he's considering right now.
Seeing him fight, like actually seeing your son fight, what is that like?
Well, it started with wrestling. I watched him wrestle all through junior high and high school, and I got way more nervous for those matches than anything. And so I think we kind of came with, figured out how to deal with that. Me being in the same sports.
Right.
If anything, dragging around the same last name was a burden.
Right.
He got a target on his back almost from the jump. So, and he's just such a great kid, such a smart kid. He's taken all that in stride. He's diligent. He has a genuine passion for the sport. So both as a father or a coach, what else could you want?
Did you find yourself getting very anxious when you were cornering him or watching him?
You just want him to do well. You see the work. You see, you know what he put into that, and you want him to do well. But you feel that way about any fighter that you're cornering, that you're coaching, that you're part of their process. So, but
it's got to be a little different when it's your son, right?
There's always that added layer. Wearing the dad hat too.
Sure.
So most parents are like, "Oh my God, weren't you worried that he'd get injured?" I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time. I've never seen anybody seriously injured. Nothing that didn't heal up in a little bit. So I wasn't worried about him that way.
Okay.
I was just happy that he found something that, he was passionate about.
How many kids in total did you have?
I have three.
Three. And the other two, what do they do?
Amy is 34. She lives up in Portland.
Okay.
She got a degree in sociology, and she was working with handicapped folks, setting up their benefits and their treatment and stuff. My youngest is 16.
Okay.
He's just driving.
Wow.
This last month. So he's been doing martial arts for 7 or 8 years. Done a little jiu-jitsu, done a lot of karate. Tried wrestling for a season, but wasn't really his thing. He's in high school now. We'll see if he comes back to wrestling, but I doubt it. I think he really enjoys the karate and the jiu-jitsu.
Any chance he actually fights?
Anything's possible. He's a big
interest?
kid. He's a smart kid, but I don't know. Again, I'm not going to push him anyway. It'll be his decision if
Would
he
you
does.
prefer he doesn't fight?
I just think he's such a smart kid.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of other options. He's a great musician, actually. He plays piano and guitar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he ever ask you questions?
I keep telling him he needs to learn how to sing.
Yeah. That's where the real money's at.
Yeah.
Does he ask you questions about the fight game where you get the sense that...
He watches his brother now.
Okay.
He never really watched me fight. He was too young back then.
Does he ever ask you about the old fights, watching the old fights?
No.
Really?
No, he doesn't.
I feel like if my dad was Randy Couture, I'd want to talk to him about,
Not yet, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. He seems to be more interested in the acting stuff.
Interesting.
And, he loves to watch movies and TV, so I think he may have some interest there.
Okay.
We'll see.
What about Chael? Chael was here a couple of weeks ago, and he said that he's fighting Lyoto Machida next. He said the impetus for this fight, his motivation for this fight, is he saw you get kicked in the face, and he said on that night, I will avenge that loss some way, somehow. And so that is his driving factor for this fight. How about that? Did you know that?
I had not heard that.
Okay.
But
sometimes Chael likes to tell stories to sell fights, but it was a good story.
Literally since he was in high school.
Yeah.
Tried to recruit him to Oregon State. And then, when he started MMA and when he was on the Greco team, and me and Dan he was one of our workout partners back then, and he ended up being an alternate on the Olympic team, I think, through that experience. And so I just, he's great. I enjoy watching him, and I enjoy the persona that has become Chael Sonnen too.
Was he like that? No, not at all, right?
I think he's shocked all of us with those first interviews. Like, holy crap, is that Chael?
Yeah. Where did this come from?
Yeah.
Do you still keep in touch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he messages me now and then, and we still stay in touch for sure.
You ever still go back there?
I go back to Oregon to see my youngest. He lives in Bend.
Okay.
And occasionally Portland to see my daughter, Amy.
Does he ask you anything about, fighting Machida?
Always. Well, he hasn't yet.
Not yet.
But he always usually.
He does.
When he was fighting Fedor, when he was, who didn't matter it was. Yeah, he hits me up. What do you think?
Interesting.
What should be my approach? What should I sharpen? Some things don't go away. We've been part of that process with him since the beginning.
Does that make you feel good that he reaches out?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always appreciate him and the fact that he's interested in my perspective.
As far as youngsters right now in the sport, are there any that you are very excited about? Are there any that you feel like have it?
Oh, there's so many. I got a gym full of them.
Really?
You look at Kevin Lee and on down the line, Danny Davis Jr. There's just a bunch of young kids in there that are hungry and in there every single day, kind of embracing the grind and trying to get it done. There's a bunch of them.
What about Kayla Harrison?
Kayla's amazing.
Yeah.
I've loved, I got to see her before her very first MMA fight,
right?
Talking to her about the sport and the things she was training on and how she saw judo fitting into that fighting style. And it's been fun to watch her compete and see that kind of unfold before your eyes. And, to have a 2-time gold medalist jump in, you were talking about Jordan Burroughs wanting to fight. And I mean, I think anybody with that combative sports background in a matter of short order could be up and running and compete well.
What's interesting to me about Kayla is that initially it seemed like she wasn't all that into this MMA thing, right? Like I remember when she won the second gold medal at the press conference, people were asking her about it, and she's like, I don't like the trash talk. I don't like the way the sport is. Now it seems like she's all in. She's at ATT, living there, super motivated. She has become the face of PFL. I don't think there's any sort of argument there at this point, right?
No, and I think that they were honestly grooming her for that,
right?
Because she is so articulate, because it's not about smack talk or any of this other sensational stuff. She can back it up.
Yeah.
And, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. Sarah Kaufman's no joke. This Pacheco that she's fighting on Thursday night is, she's got 4 knockouts and 7 submissions. She was undefeated for her first 10 fights. She's a very, very game fighter. So it'll be interesting to see how Kayla, who's 3-0 in MMA, you got to count all that background in combative sports too, but see how she deals with those problems and solves them.
And so on Thursday, it's the 155-pound women's tournament commencing. Also the 170-pound male. Is it just those two, or is there a third one?
No, it's just those two weight classes.
Yeah. Ray Cooper
against Kanaka, who, there's been a lot of heat.
Yes.
That's bragging rights in Hawaii there. Right. And Kanaka takes that seriously.
Some of the lineup right over there.
It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Ray Cooper's, Kanaka's manager, Brian Butler, actually just posted on Instagram, like the whole backstory between the two. Like this is real Hawaiian bragging rights between them going down on Thursday. Like they've been on this collision course. And it's going to play out on Thursday. It's actually going to be the first time I attend a PFL event this Thursday. I'll be there in person. Awesome. So I'm looking forward to seeing what it's like. It's always good to see different shows, and how, cause I don't think it's good to have just one show in this sport, right? Yeah. As we talked about earlier. So I'm curious to see how it.
Well, Nassau Coliseum's amazing. It's a great venue. Yep. They do a great job of setting it up there, and it's a fun place to be.
I appreciate you doing this.
Great fun. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Making the trek, Randy. I really. Is your first time at ESPN? No, I can't imagine.
I was here
promoting things
years ago when I was still fighting.
Right.
It's grown.
It has.
This has really grown.
Yes, it's like a sports wonderland when you come here in the middle of nowhere.
It is.
Bristol, Connecticut. Are you heading to New York?
Headed, yep. I'm going to get in the car and head
You
up
should go
there.
watch Askren
I'm
Burroughs.
going to try and do that. I didn't know that was going on, so I'm definitely going to try and catch
oh my
the
gosh.
beat the streets.
We might have made this happen.
Yeah.
At the theater, where you guys are going to have your championship.
Literally some of the best wrestlers in the world competing tonight.
Well, this all worked out.
Yeah.
Okay. There he is. Randy Couture, PFL, commences this Thursday on ESPN. 10 events, and then the finale of the season, the second season, will be December 31st at the Hulu Theater.